We have another busy week on hand to break down as we have 13 games between 8 teams, and another team looks to get healthy as we're getting closer to district play. We also have a great state versus state matchup this week. Think Big Ten ACC challenge with this one. And of course, we preview next week's games. All that and more in this episode. Let's kick it off with the only team who was off this week, the Lincoln Trail Statesmen. Like I said, the Statesmen have this week off, so they are going to look to get healthy and be ready for their next week's slate of games. They're going to have a couple tough ones on tap again after a okay showing the last couple of weeks. They're looking to get healthy. They're looking to make sure they don't have any illnesses, possibly some finals coming up. We're going to see that, see how that plays into effect for some of these teams maybe later on in the episode. But yeah, so the Lincoln Trail Statesmen are off this week. Second week in a row that we have a team that is idle. I don't really see that going on much further. I know for a fact next week, full slate of district opponents are playing. So let's go ahead and jump into the first recap of the day and the Kaskaskia Blue Devils. I have been saying this as I took stats from the Blue Devils time and time again. They have a very distinct thing that they do. They have trouble beating teams the second time they see them. And it continues with their game against Oakland City JV. Caleb Jenkins led the way for Kaskaskia with 18 points, shooting 7 of 13 from the field and adding 11 rebounds. Kobe Wolmoth had 15 to go with his 5 of 10 shooting from the field. All 5 field goals were from 3. Will Vassar finished with 13 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists. Friday's game against Indiana Elite Prep was postponed or canceled. I still don't really know what that necessarily means. Are they going to be playing those games later on, or is it just going to be a non-game for that team? This is the first game of the, I said, think about the Big Ten ACC challenge here. It's the Missouri-Illinois series, also known as the St. Louis Shootout series. And the first game was played between the Blue Devils and the host school, the Archers of St. Louis Community College, with the Blue Devils picking up the win 65-63. Kamari Slaughter and Will Vesser scored 29 of the 65 team points for the Blue Devils, shooting a combined 12 of 22 from the floor and had a total of 8 rebounds. As a team, Kaskaskia shot 46.6% from the floor and 41.7% from threes. That's really what you're going to need heading more into district play, being able to continue to play well. And again, it's going to be interesting to see as they have another one of those teams that they played earlier in the year in Simmons College. They play them next week. It's going to be interesting to see if they continue that hardship of not being able to beat a team quite as convincingly the second time you see them. And if that's going to be the case, it's going to be very difficult for Coach Hancock and the Blue Devils once we hit district play. The Wabash Valley Warriors finally got to 500 as Lucas Henderson paced the way for Wabash Valley with 18 points, going 6 of 11 from the floor. Andron Sprinkles went 7 of 9 for 17 points off the bench. And Julian McGowan was another starter, being able to go 6 of 8, 8 rebounds, and 15 points. And 11 points, 5 of 7 shooting, and 5 rebounds from Daniel Robinson as they rolled against Oakland City JV 99-73. And again, with that win, the Warriors are now at 500 at 3-3. And they moved to over 500 for the first time this year, beating the visiting Missouri Baptist JV team 94-53 in Mount Carmel. Henderson, Robinson, and Sprinkles once again led the way for WVC, scoring 14 points each. Muja Burton netted 13 points, followed by Resman Zeke with 11, and Julian McGowan, who scored 10. Again, Wabash Valley is starting to find their way, and if they can really find it this week, going into district play the following week is going to be very, very tough for them. But I think if they can find their footing here, next week might make it a little bit easier. It's just all going to depend on how they play that opening game That's going to be a big thing for all these teams going forward, is that opening game, opening jitters for some of these guys that haven't been on the district teams yet. Well, we talked about some good with Wabash Valley and Kaskaskia. Let's talk about some of the only bad this week. Starting with the Lakeland Lakers. Lakeland traveled to Danville and led the host Jaguars 46-36 at the half, but fell apart in the second half, and the Jags won the game 74-70. Tyler Chapman led the way for the Lakers with 17 points, 9 rebounds, shooting 6 of 19 from the field. Aaron Davis also finished with 15 points, 7 of 13 from the floor, and had 4 rebounds. Mason Larkin hit 3 trays and finished with 11 points off the bench. Here's where they really fell apart. I'm not going to say fell apart because it was a very close game, but after leading by 10 at the half and then losing by 4, those 14 points, you can really see it in 2 big categories, and it's one of the categories that I always talk about. It is the turnover battle and the rebounding battle. They lost the turnover battle 14-8, which for a full 40 minutes, only turning the ball over 14 times is nothing to scoff at. That is incredible. Some teams turn the ball over 14 times and a half. And forcing 8 turnovers, yeah, you want to force a little bit more, but that's either going to come or it's not. And the other one's the rebounding battle. Now, if you can win the rebounding battle big and lose the turnover battle, you're more than likely probably going to win the game because you're going to have some second chance opportunities, or you're going to cut some of their opportunities in half. Instead of having them go up for a second chance shot, you grab it and you transition. Lakeland won this battle 39-35. So close in the rebounding battle, and losing the turnover battle is probably what happened here, on top of not really hitting their shots. I mean, Chapman shot pretty poorly, 6 of 19. So he got his points, but he took 19 shots to get there. So it's going to be interesting to see what Lakeland does this week and how they prepare for district play coming forward. Vincennes has a difficult slate of games coming up this week, with going to Iowa to play Indian Hills and Sauk Valley Friday and Saturday. They're also taking finals this week. So that adds another dimension to how they prep for the game. They only had one game last week. They took on Division II Elgin, and they absolutely rolled. They led 50-27 at the half. Gerald Thomas led the way for the Blazers with 19 points, including going 8 of 12 from the foul line and 5 of 9 from the field. Matthew Nader Colombo went 6 of 8 from the field, adding 15. As a team, the Blazers shot incredibly well. 61% from the floor and 64% from 3. Hitting 11 threes in the ball game. They also had 52 rebounds and 28 assists with 17 turnovers. So again, they kept the turnovers low. They won the rebounding battle exponentially, and they had a high assist rate. They won the game 104-58. I'm going to say that this is going to be, I mean, Coach Franklin has already challenged these kids a couple different times, especially right before Thanksgiving with Indian Hills. Indian Hills is going to look to get revenge on their home floor. It's always hard playing in Ottumwa. It is going to be really hard knowing that it's going to be a top 15 matchup. And Hills is going to look to give Vincennes their first loss of the year. Adding on the fact that they're not, Coach Franklin said in his post-game show that they're going to have to figure out how to have a good week of practice with finals week coming up. They're taking finals early this year. But he said that's being part of a college athlete. You got to deal with that. So his team will deal with it. And then Sauk Valley is another difficult team to play right before you get ready for district play. Again, they've had a loaded schedule, and they've come out time and time again, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do this week. Let's go ahead and move to the other ranked team in the district. Yes, it's nice to say that the district has 2 ranked teams again. Olney Central Unfortunately, they did not move up in the polls like they were hoping to. But they did handle a very, very good Three Rivers team on the road at Poplar Bluff, Missouri. You know, I said Ottumwa was a difficult place to play. Poplar Bluff is just as difficult, and they won this game convincingly, 96-76. JT Thomas went a perfect 6 for 6 on the floor and finished with 12 points, adding 11 rebounds. Jacoby Thompson was 7 of 11, had 5 assists, and finished with 15. But the leading scorer for the Blue Knights was Damian Walkup, who had 23 points, going 7 of 12 from the field, 3 of 4 from behind the arc, 6 rebounds, and a block. They dominated the boards 45-24, had 22 assists to 13 turnovers. Man, Coach Glash's team is looking good, and that is going to be difficult for every other team in this district going forward. Olney has played some tough competition this year. They've stepped up to the plate. So it's going to be very interesting to see. They finish out a very tough non-conference schedule. And again, I say non-conference because easiest way for you to understand district play is, if you're not from junior college, is district play is like your conference schedule. You seed a tournament at the end of the year, and then the winner of that tournament plays for a national championship. That's why I focus on this district right now. And Olney Central is starting to look like a dark horse coming into it. SWIC played an old district foe on Tuesday night, and they handled them pretty well, defeating the Trailblazers of Lewis and Clark 83-59. Before I go forward, let me just say that is still really weird to say that Lewis and Clark is no longer in the district and that's a former foe. Just like saying that for Southeastern earlier in the year was weird for me. This is going to be weird as well. But going back to the game, Saxon Hokeeper led the way for the Blue Storm with 22 points, 10 of 16 from the floor, 10 rebounds, and 3 steals. Jacoby Huddleston added a huge spark for SWIC off the bench defensively. He was a starter, but defensively, he was the huge spark with 11 of his 13 rebounds coming from the defensive glass. And he had 5 block shots to go along with it. He also scored 10 points, going 5 of 6 from the floor. However, the Blue Storm could not keep that momentum going into the St. Louis Classic, the Missouri-Illinois shootout, wherever you want to say, as they took on the Raiders of Three Rivers. The Raiders had a bad taste in their mouth, and it showed. Hokeeper had 16 points, 6 rebounds. But here's the thing with Hokeeper. Yes, he had 16 points, 16 rebounds. He had to take 15 shots to get there. So you limit your shots, and you still get that output. You're looking at a very, very dangerous kid, and he's shown that from time to time, especially the last game. 16 shots, 22 points. So, Hokeeper had an off night, so SWIC had an off night. Kenton Wright was the only other Blue Storm player in double figures, and he shot 5 of 10 from the field. Again, that's better than what Hokeeper was able to do. Hokeeper went 5 of 15. Kenton Wright went 5 of 10. He finished with 12 points. And again, like I said, the Raiders had bad taste in their mouth. They bounced back from their loss to Olney Central with a 71-59 win over the Blue Storm in that shootout classic, whatever you want to call it. The Saints suffered their first loss of the season as they fell to Arkansas State Mid-South's 80-72. Keshawn Washington was the big scorer off the bench for Shawnee as he finished with 23 points and shot 10 of 15 from the field. See what I just said there? He shot 15 shots, got 23 points. Saxon Hokeeper, again, going back to SWIC. That is what you want to see out of your star player. And Keshawn Washington showed it for Shawnee. And he also had 3 steals. Johnny Washington was the lead scorer for the starters with 19 points off 6 of 13 shooting, grabbing 10 rebounds and going 6 of 8 from the free throw line. The Saints shot 50% from the floor for the game, but only 37.5% from behind the arc as they finished with also 19 turnovers. Again, the 37.5 isn't terrible. It's just low for what Shawnee has been able to put up in the past. They bounced back against SEMO Prep on Sunday, winning 69-58. Ladricus Pittman finished with he went 8 of 17 from the floor, 9 of 10 from the foul line, had 5 rebounds, and finished with 27 points. Ladrikis, excuse me, that's going to be hard when he still has good games. I'll have to learn how to pronounce that name later on. Anderson also was another same that was in double figure with 16 points, and he added 16 rebounds. Shawnee has another tough week ahead as they get ready for district play. So again, it's going to be interesting to see what these Saints are going to be able to do once they hit the district play, but they got to get there first, and they got a very tough test coming up. And I'm going to cover that here after I cover Logan. The defending champs picked up their second win of the year against SEMO Prep, 91-83. The Vols had 4 players in double figures, but no player had more than 15 points, and none of the players shot the ball more than 8 times. Now that, my friends, is how you win as a team and how you are able to do it well. As a team, the Vols shot 50.8% from the floor and went 10 of 28 from threes. The only downside in what kept SEMO Prep in the game was the fact that the Vols shot only 17 of 30 from the foul stripe. Missing free throws is going to cost you games here in the district. It just is. So the fact that they missed 13 of those, and again, it was a very close game. So, and then Logan had to travel to a really difficult place to play in Ottumwa as they faced the then number 11 Warriors of Indian Hills. It was a back and forth affair in the first half, which saw the Vols only trailing by 1. However, the Warriors scored 51 points in the second half, and won the rebounding battle 38-28, and Indian Hills won the game 88-72. Alfred Worrell led the way for the Vols with 28 points, followed by Julian Norris, who shot 7 of 12 from the field and finished with 17. The other Vol in double figures was Elliot Londas, and he had 10 points. The Vols also lost this turnover battle 16-10, and again, losing turnover battles, the rebounding battle was about even, so that's how a 1-point game at the half turns into a 16-point loss overall. Again, only 16 turnovers. That is very well coached team by Coach Smith Peters. It's just not hitting their shots. And again, they shot relatively well. So Ottumwa's just a tough place to play, man. The fans are on top of you. They're always going to be loud. So it's going to be very, very difficult for Vincennes next week. So, but with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the previews of this week's games, as I mentioned before, and I kind of teased on a couple of different teams earlier in the video. Well, like I said in the open, we had 13 games this week. We just went over. This next week coming up, we have 15 games, and all 9 teams are going to be playing this week. So no West Further Erie, and let's go ahead and start with Shawnee versus Triton. That's going to be a big-time matchup. I can already see that going one of 2 ways for the Saints. Hopefully it goes the way I want them to go, and that is picking up a win before they head into district play. Wabash Valley plays one opponent this week. That is St. Mary of the Woods JV. And again, it's going to be one of those games where it's going to be tune-up game. If they can play well, play together, play smart, it's going to be a nice win for them, and then they're going to be able to focus on district play and possibly finals week that week. I don't know when these other schools have finals. All I know is about Vincennes. Speaking of Vincennes, I mentioned it in their segment. A very tough week of games for them. They play at Indian Hills, and then they play Sauk Valley. Again, 2 very tough teams. That's going to be in Ottumwa for their holiday classic, I believe. So that's going to be very, very difficult to manage. Actually, as I'm recording this video, Lakeland had just taken the floor against the Milken JV team. So when this video is posted, that game had gone final. So that game I will talk about more next week. Kaskaskia only has one opponent as well. That is Simmons College. Again, when I talked about the Kaskaskia breakdown, the fact that they play this team twice is going to be very interesting to see if they're able to break that streak of playing the second time a lot closer than they played the first time. I thought they were going to be able to break it earlier on in the year. They haven't so far, so I'm going to keep an eye on this game against Simmons College. Olney, boy, they have another tough opponent in Mineral Area, but they have shown me that they can battle these tough opponents. They lost to Triton earlier in the year, but they bounced back and they beat Three Rivers. They beat Southeastern Community College and the Blackhawks. So they have 2 good wins, 1 good loss on their record. Mineral Area has been able to beat every other team in the district so far. They have not played Vincennes, but everybody else in the GRAC, they have been able to play, some multiple times, and they have beat them every single time. So it's going to be interesting to see how Coach Glash and the Blue Knights of Olney Central handle that. And then their second game of the week is Bosco Prep, so a nice prep school. Going to play you hard, going to play you tough. That should still be a win for OCC. And heading into district play, they're looking at possibly 1 or 2 losses going in. Lincoln Trail, they're looking to get healthy. They have the week off, so they should be a little bit more healthier than some of these other teams. They have Oakland City JV, which we've seen a lot of this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're able to play against the Mighty Oaks. And then they play Jefferson College again. Jefferson, I mentioned it in week 1. They're just coming back to being a junior college from, I think they were a club team last year. So going back into being an official NJCAA team, it's going to be interesting to see how Lincoln Trail can kind of battle that. Again, if Lincoln Trail can go 2-0 this week, they're looking pretty good as they get ready to face a district opponent. And then you have SWIC. SWIC is facing another team that we have seen in the past couple of weeks, especially last week, in the Moberly area Greyhounds. So they play them, and then they play, again, this is just really weird for me to say, the former district opponent, Lewis and Clark. So they play Lewis and Clark relatively close to each other, so that's going to be very interesting to see how that is done. And finally, Logan, they got 3 big games on tap. They got Three Rivers, and then they have their own little round-robin tournament that they participate in, and they got Triton and then Southwest Tennessee. So, God, Coach Smith-Peters, I know you put a tough schedule for a purpose, but it's just going to be interesting to see how you're able to work this week out, get healthy, get finals done, and get ready for the district play. That's going to do it for this episode. Yes, it was probably either a little long, probably a little bit more winded, but as we're starting to get more and I'm able to see a little bit more of these teams, I'm able to put in my own thoughts and opinions instead of just spitting out book-cutting stats to you, and that's what I really want to be able to do. Let me know in the comments down below if you like the graphics that I put up for this week's episode a little bit better. Also, let me know if you want more guests, if that's just the coaching staffs. I understand. I have been reaching out to them. Haven't heard anything back. If that is some radio personalities, I know I can probably reach out to Dave Hunter, the voice of Logan. I can probably reach out to. Olney Central, I can probably reach out to them. So I got a couple guys there that I can probably reach out to. If you want to see former players, I have people that I can probably reach out to for that. Or former coaches. I do have a couple of former coaches that I can possibly reach out to. They're at the next level, so that's going to be a little bit more difficult to work around their schedules. But whatever you guys want to see done for this district episode, this district podcast, I'm willing to try my best to be able to do. Like I said, I have reached out to some coaches. I just haven't heard back from them yet. But I want to change this up so it's just not me talking all the time. But let me know down in the comments below for that. That's going to do it for this week's episode, everybody. I will see you in the next one.